the very top part. It says, Rav Maksha Hech Yisake, Shehitzoni Sakli, Yoser Godel, Bipinimius Sakli. How could be the outside be the better part? Ba'od Shachush Arawas, that we know about Kalim. Livish Bipinimius Sakli, Adifa Mekitzoni Sakli. Okay, we're just looking at that because this is the question that he asks. We'll go to the next blurb at the top. We're on page Lamed Ches now. It says a tshuva. So Hagdama Bebir Mahu or Makif. The first time we want to talk about what's the word Makif. So he says his ofen his dakus hakli. How is it in fact that the kli becomes more refined? Bipinimius, and also the kitzonius. Ayidera or hamakif alpanimi, that the war of the makif actually has an effect on the outside of the kli and the inside of the kli. Now the next one that he says like this, so he's going to talk about that, or that kind of idea of how is in fact that you're refining the kli. Now in the next one it says he's vor tam rishon. So here's the first tam. This is not where we're on the next page. Shahu the sivas kitzonis akli is because of the nature, I guess, of the what would cause the kli. Mifnei or hamakif hamaulo. The more makif is the higher quality light, which means it's a light with more of the energy of the nothingness of Ein Sof, if that's possible to say. Lo yair b'kli rak shemikoro memaku ma'ula. So it only shines on it when its root is in from a place which is a very high place. And we could go through that, but I think basically he's saying that it shines at a distance, a very, very high quality light at a distance. Now we're going to go and look now, and I want to do it like this. I'd like to read the top only of the words of the Rav, and then we'll pick up the Tiv of Kavanos, which would be beginning on number Zion. Is that okay with you?
Yep, that's good.
So he says the idea of this is the second reason, Shuhu L'Sivas Ora Penimi, is because of the nature of the Ora Penimi, or what is caused by the Ora Penimi, because he's answering the zachkeit of what's inside and what's outside. Because the whole idea is so that the light that's the makif should somehow be able to penetrate and to shine into the Or Penimi. So let's see what he says, what the Rav says. So he says, Gam yesh siva cheres, there's another reason, he says. V'hi karova al hanizkar, and it's similar to what we mentioned already. V'hu kinei or hamakif chashko v'chepso lihidavek im ha'or penimi. Well, all that it wants is this is a magnetic attraction in some way between them. So therefore would be that if the outside of the kli, lo choya zach yoser, was not more refined. Now what zach means? Zach means that it's more penetrable. Lo choya or a makif, or makif would never be able to come into the kli. So apparently this is important. So he says, Amnam behiyos chetzech hachitzon shaladofen zach. But now we see that the outside of this kli is going to be the more refined part of the kli. Az yesh yecholas be'or makif. Then you see that makif yecholas la'avor bo could get into that wall of the kli. Ad chetzech penimi shaladofen, into the middle half of the dofen. Till the middle, he says the chetzech penimi, until it reaches the inner half of the dofen. And then we have the two lights shining into each other. Says so we said before that the penimius of those not so refined. We're not concerned about what this means. We have to learn about what he's talking about. Because the light on the inside is going to pass also through. It's going to be able to, even though that it's the more crude part, let's say, it's going to be able to shine into it, even though the inside of the kli is more crude. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, let's go look at number Zion, and we'll go to the light print only. So let me see if I got this lined up. How I got this lined up. 1 second. Okay, there we go. So he says, V'yesh od tama sheni karav al nisker. It's similar to what we said before in the first reason. Ak lo mitzad the kalim ela mitzad the oros. But it's not because we're talking about the inside outside of the kalim. We're talking about the lights. What does that mean? Pirish kekevin shehu or hamakev nimsa mechutz l'kli. Rotza the hidavik im ora benimi. It wants to get to the ora benimi. Hanimsa besocha kli. So let's say if remember that the light of the light, so lights come out of the ears and lights come out of the nose and they meet in the mouth. He says, going back, which is a less level of light. It's not such a refined light. Then you would see the chitzon would be avagas if it came out of the chotim. If the chotim produces a light which is weaker. Ma'akev is or hamakev, and it would hold back that more of a makli hikonis for the hidabek al or habenimi. So it would make it difficult for that actually to take place. Let's move over to the next side and let's see what. 1 second here. Okay, and let's look at the light print. It says, so now we say, let's just say the fast is that the lights of the light that is going to shine on the kitzonius is going to come from a much higher level, shuhu ha'ozen. So therefore, since that the outside of the kli is made out of ozen dikolite, so therefore, it's able to penetrate, it's a makif, able to penetrate el toch hakli, v'la'avar ad chetzer dofen habenimi, and to pass into the middle. That is, I guess he says to the outside of the inside wall. How about that? Shesham nimsa or habenimi, because that's where you find the or habenimi. V'oz nimsa shnei ha'oras hamakif habenimi me'irim zeh. Now you see that the two are now shining into each other. Number test, and we'll keep reading the light print. He says the chorach of yesh lahakshas. But now we have a question. The fianis mar betam hasheni. There's been already been answered over here according to that zakash. Shal karchoch muchrach that says kitzoni sakli ma'ozen, because it has to be the outside of the key has to come from ozen light. The im koyer yotzim mechotin, because if he's just saying it again. If it was being made, the chitzonis of the kli was being made out of the light of the nose, then the outside of the kli would be thicker and more coarse. So therefore you couldn't have that situation that's making the outside of the kli, because then the light of the makif wouldn't have a way to get through. It then becomes another problem. How is it so that's fine. You said that about the outside of the kli, it's a more refined kli, but what about the inside of the kli? That's a place where the more coarse of the structure is found. How would it get to the or makif? Because it would have to go through that wall, that dolphin, but the dolphin is going to be crude. It's going to be difficult to go through it, so it would never be able to work. But anyway, in the long run, is not exactly what he says. It's not refined. And then you would see that since that has to go in there, then it wouldn't be able to place to reach it. They can't get in further into that. I guess he may be saying, I had a question, why does he say it goes only into the halfway mark? So he seems to want to say that it goes to the halfway mark because that's when the wall gets more thick again and it becomes more coarse and it's hard to get through it. But if that's the case, it won't be able to make it into the inside of the kli. And then, so how would the penimi and the makif come together? Now, what is he really talking? Yeah, go ahead.
So they're not going to come together because the chitzoni is not the makif is not going to get into the penimi. I'm saying at the end of the day, that's what ends up happening, right?
Yeah, that's his question. So it would be logical that, okay, you said finally refine the outside can get in, but what are you going to do with the inside? The inside has to go through an impenetrable wall. So it's not going to work. So he answers. He says like this. So the Rab now explains. Since it says, this is a fact, that the light in the inside, it passes through halfway into the wall. It does. The dofen hakli mitzad penimi afal pi she'ein kli zak kol kach. Even though that it's very coarse and you shouldn't be able to get through it just on using logic, but you do. And now he wants to bring an answer. V'atam she'or penimi yochel hikones v'lohoyer b'penimis hakli. Af she'einu zak kol kach. Even though that it's not so refined. Mizbarim b'divrich HaRab l'cholon b'pirkin. So the Rab will explain later on as we go on. Mifnei she'or penimi niknat b'fin nifnim. It's inside. V'davuk b'kli b'devekus gomor, and it is, in other words, it's like stuck inside. That's the wrong metaphor, but it's clinging to the walls of the kli because it expands inside of it, and it's always bouncing against that kli, the inside of the kli, the lob k'makif shemeir mechok, because it's right there. And the makif, which is a much more powerful light, but the nature of the makif is it's not inside; it's on the outside, and so therefore it has to have more help to be. It has to be more refined, to be able to penetrate, because it's not right next to it; it has some distance to it. Now this will be talked about more, and maybe some other ideas, because it'll get a little bit thicker as we go along over here. For makif magia ad chetzi ovya, so there the makif we know goes through half of the wall. Hakli mitzad hakitzon to the chain. So therefore, yecholin the hidabek, it can come and it can cling on to the. I'm getting there. On the or hamakif, to this or makif, it can cling on to the light of the makif. Or a mafnif be'emsa hakli, which is in the middle of the kli, but it's pushed up directly against the walls of the kli, and he says as a result of that therefore it's able to penetrate through half of the wall of the kli. So he said.
So let me ask you this: if I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like you're saying that the Or Penimi is like a less. I'm just going to use a flashlight as an example, but it's like a less powerful flashlight, but it's illuminating at a very close range. So therefore, it can penetrate even a very thick wall because it's so close. Mashenkein or Makif is inherently a brighter light, but it's so much farther away that at close range it's not as effective.
Excellent. Okay, now are we on number Yud Bet? Now where did it go? Where are we now? Yud Bet, Yud Aleph. I was supposed to be Yud Aleph. Huh?
Yeah, so you want to read on top
Yeah, I do. I want to read the top first. The reason why I like to do that, first of all, they're the words of the Rav, and then the Tiv is dividing them up into sections. So when we're learning like Yud Beis, Yud Gimel like that, he's actually taking a section of the sections, which reads okay, but sometimes I like to look at it in this way, and that, that helps me a little bit. So anyway, Shaila, so there's a question. We know this about the nature of Kalim. Tshuva, the answer to that, Yoser yesh devekos or penimi im penimios. But the concept of devekos, which is what you were describing, is much stronger on the inside than it was on the outside. So penimios akli or hamakiv in kitzonius akli. So I guess we just read that one, number Yud Aleph? I could read it again. So number Yud Aleph in the light print. We'll take it. Oh, wait. We're reading Yud Aleph. Okay, I'm getting mixed up. V'im tiksha, yes, this question, Tomik Yeradayim, yesh lahakshot, v'loma shahare b'chusha raos on the rolim, shepenimius akli, zak yosef b'kitzonius, b'kitzonioso. Zatshuva ki bir ha'inyanu, they explain it, ki afal pisha or hapenimi cotton or hamakif, im kol zeh lihi yosef mugvar toicha kli, because it's bounded by the kli. L'chein hakli mekabel ha'arish shlema b'menu, it gets a complete light. It gets the whole light of the penimius. Masha'in came with the chitzonius or the makif. However, a makif afal pishu or godol, it's a much brighter light. That's what you're saying. But he wants to say that it seems like he wants to say that if you looked at the makif and you looked at what's close to the kli, then you'll see a certain amount of the light, which probably maybe stronger, would be further away from the kli. Whereas you look at the penimius, everything is one light, just one light, one solid light, and that's what he said. Al pishu or kodol Since it's not contracted inside of the kli, it doesn't really wind up with a quantity of light, even though it's a better light, much more refined light. You're not getting the same amount. Or Penimi, like for example, if you compare it to the Or Penimi as a kli, and now we got the whole thing worked out. So let's take a look here. We have number Yud Aleph and number Yud Base in the light print. And the Tiv writes, and he says like this, and I quote, I'm just trying to get this on the screen better. He says, Anta hohoizach rab l'kushach rishona. Ki adayim yesh makam lahaksho she'anu roin b'husha b'chapinimis akli chasha v'ma'ula v'zak yosem v'yitzonis akli. V'im came ifnei ma yatsa b'nimis akli minachotin. So therefore, why is it that the penimis of the kli comes out of the nose? Shuhu gerua b'ma'alaso mina or ha'ozen. So this is like a contradiction to what we see in real life. But for whatever reason, the penimis of the kli, etc., is made out of oros that come from the nose. So he says the tshuva. So let's go down below. And he says, ubir ha'inyan hu kach. This is the explanation of what we're talking about. Chiluk bein ha'aras or ha'makif b'chetzi doifen ha'kli ha'kitzonius. Bein ha'aras or b'nimi b'chetzi doifen ha'b'nimi. Chetzi ha'doifen ha'b'nimi mekabel ha'aras shleimer min ha'or ha'b'nimi v'nimsa b'socho. Ki ha'or ha'b'nimi mislavish tok b'nimis ha'kli. It's now clothed inside of the kli. V'nasa davukum b'chubarimo, and so it's in this chubarimo. V'lechein an the rowan b'chush rose. Sheb'nimius ha'kli yosem ma'ula. So now we see that it's on a higher level. L'umas ha'doif and the gitzonius she'ena mekabel ha'ara gadola. So he says the word ha'ara, a shining. Ha'ara is not or, it's less lashon ha'ara, shining. It's just, so he said mekabel ha'ara gadola kol kach mina or ha'makif. It's getting a very, very, let me see what he said. He says l'umas ha'dof and the chitzon, which is getting this higher quality level, but at a different, it's a makif. So then it doesn't make it all so refined. Now with this little explanation, now we have an idea what's going on. It's not like a kli that we see here, but it has reasons these things match up with each other. Now we're going to go to another piece. And as I say, the plot will thicken. He says that in the Eitz Chaim, now this is a part of the Eitz Chaim. It's called the Medura Tinyan. I think we've talked about that before, and it is the most complete part. But you'll see that if you were learning, and you'll get to the Eitz Chaim, that you'll see that it has different directions. Talking the same subject, different directions, all of them, one more beautiful than the next, really. So let's see what this one says. This was in the Eitz Chaim. It's maskil parak. This is where the third parak would begin if you were in the Eitz Chaim. However, it's the same words, same Rav. So let's see what he says over here. He says, V'hinei, sheyesh besag gam bechinas nekudos, betagim, and osios, hamizgala be'oras hayotzim derech hanayim. Now this is just a little blurb that he's throwing in here. And we'll go over the words again. He says, now we've been talking about sag before, and here, but sag, besides tamim, which is said there were the three different types of tamim, he's going to say this, so I'm just doing it for myself. He said the tamim el-yona, the emseim, and the tachtonim. Those are tamim. But not only that, but in sag there's also nekudos. But the two kudos also come along with tagging and osios. See, these are Mizgalin Ba'oras Hayotzim Derech Hanayim, and we're going to see them. This is premature, but he's dropped it in here. Yeah, the Rav dropped it in to say that there's going to be an amount of light that's going to come from the Nekudas of Sag. They're going to come out of the eyes of Ak. So we've talked about Ozen Chotem Peh, and so we have an idea what's going on there. All of a sudden, he says, why didn't we go to the eyes right away? I mean, isn't the eyes up there by the ears? So what happens here? What's the eyes? The eye sockets. So imagine that, and I want to appeal to you also to really, I know that you got a great mind, but also you have to use your imagination. You have to see things in your head. So be able to understand a little bit what he's going, or just sift through the taste of it. It is a nice taste. Whatever. But imagination very important for this because it's very poetic, as you see, and as a result, you have to use metaphor a lot. Okay, so
Right.
number Yud Gimel, we're reading Yud Gimel up above. Okay, first we're reading Yud Gimel. Or did I read it already? I read it right. No. Shalosh Bechinos Atamim. So we talked about that. Amnam Gam Bechinos Nukudas Tagim Osios Kululim Behem. They also have a tanta in them too. But here he wants to talk about just Nukudos, Tagim, and Osios. Ella She'inim is Galim Khan, but you don't see them here in the Ozen Chotem Peh area. They're not going to be found there. Ad Lamata Be'oras Anayim, until you get down below in the lights of the eyes. He said Lamata. Why do you say Lamata when you know that the eyes are up above the nose and they're up above maybe up above everything? I haven't really looked at myself that clearly. So why do you say that? He said, not revealed except what Oros and Anayim, commotion is bar the Makoma. We're going to get to that as a Kale, Barachu, and we will get to that, but it's not over here. It's going to be Shar Nakudim, which is a Shar after this, the one that we're in now. So now is a time that we have to start thinking about traveling. We're traveling in our spaceship into inner space. Before this, maybe in the area of the Ozen and the Chotem, maybe there was no such concept as space. I'm just saying this to myself. Maybe there was nothing. It was very difficult. There was nothing, mostly nothing there. So let's go on like this. Adata nizbar inin shlosha bechinas oros atamen shebeshem sad, which is atamen memyonim shehem oros hayotzim in haozim v'tamen emetzaim shehem oros hayotzim in hachotem v'tamen metachtonim shehem oros hayotzim in peh. So now we're seeing that this is the head of Ak, and this is the lights coming out. Amna chutz bebechinas hatamim shebeshem sad, but with the exception of the tamim that have to do with the name sad. Yebechinas nechudas v'tagim v'osias. There's also, we're going to have to be talking about these too. There's also nekudim and tamim that have to do, and osios, that have to do with sad too. Agiluyim, but the thing about them is who ba'oras sheyotzim derek anayim. It's lights that come out through the path of the light of the eyes. Ba'olam nekudim, into what's going to become called the olam nekudim. Gavishi is bar be'ezakel. Barachu b'makomo. V'ata choyzach Rab the voyer inyan oras hayotzachim in the past, and now the Rab. Now that was the end of that, and so he just as I say to others, or we're learning with others that the Rav and the Rig and also Rebbe Shimon in different places drops different names in on you, and maybe different ideas that you hadn't seen before, but it just drops it in. Now you know something. You heard that word. You know that there's nekudim that are going to come out of the eyes. Now we want to talk about how the kalim are formed. And over here we have a little intro. So let me see if I could translate it. It says, "Kedei l'chavin hemshek divich harav nakdim hakdama kasara." Let me tell you a little something. Haklal hu b'kol kisvei harizal. Shekal Partzuf, that is the Partzuf, and which is, and this, not the world's greatest grammar, I don't think. Partzuf, Nikra, what is a Partzuf called? Misha Yeshlo Eses Spheres Ma'atzmo. It has its own, what's the right word? Personal spheros. That's a Partzuf. It has 10 spheres of its own. You could go on, let's say, for Erech Anpin. Erech Anpin has 10 spheros, so Abba, which is Chochmah, has 10 spheros, etc. Like that. Each one of them, if the Partzuf, is going to have 10 spheros. Well, sort of like. Yesh lo chamesh bechinos shehem nefesh, but let's say talk about the spheros. There's an aspect which I call oros. So there's an aspect of it that has 5 bechinos shehem nefesh, ruach, neshama, chayin, yechida. You probably heard these words before. That the nature of the lights, let's say that the light, let's just pretend that this is a metaphor that works, gets refracted. If you were able to look inside of the light, let's say the light's coming your way. If you were ever really to look at it, you had some kind of a prism, you would find that there are 5 levels to this light. It's not just one light. So this is a bit of grammar that I had a little trouble with. From these aspects, that is, these 5 are called Naranchi. by my people. I've heard it pronounced Narnachi, recently, but my people always said Naranchi. So I just want you to know that Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaim, Yechida, we're going to call it Naranchi. So with these, there is a double of the lights that are inside Sheniknas of close Tocha Kli. V'oras Makif-Penimi Desire Me'irim Merachok. And then we said that so that you have these lights. I don't know what he meant by Kefulim. It means doubled. But at any rate, I think he meant that they're inside of the Kli.
Hello, and welcome to Card Member Service.
Whoa, what
I'll
happened?
be helping you with your account.
Whoa, what happened there?
Para continuar en español, oprima 2.
Hang up. Hang up. Wow.
Hi, hello, I lost you.
Yeah, sure did. I hit my phone and that thing came on. V'oros Makifim Omdim Saviv Kliya Me'irim Merachok. Okay, that's what we're saying. You have lights that get folded up inside, then you have the outside, the outside. Then Shleimus HaPartzuf Hika Shenishlam Law Eser Bechinos. So you have to have, for a Partzuf has to have the 10 different parts. And he says, what are the 10 different parts? Now, this is where I think this explanation is not as good in his old book, but let's see if I can make it work. It says, Shehem He Bechinas Penimim Vehe Bechinas Makifim. So in other words, the lights are composed of a Naranchi. Each one of them has its own Naranchi. So he said, V'afal Pisha Shleimus HaParts of Hushayesh Lo He Oros Penimim Vehe Oros Makifim. We know that the Shleimus of the parts of is going to be like that. But in actuality, the order that we're talking about only comes until, I'm not sure what he means, again, until you reach the Olam HaKudim. So what is he actually trying to say? So in other words, before that, the concept of the 5 and the 5, let me translate it one more time. But actually, what actually happens, this order of 5 and 5, Rak ad Olam Hakudim, was only until you reached Olam Hakudim. Now, I guess he means to say, I think he got a better explanation in the other book, but we'll go with this one. He says, until that part you had 5 and 5. Minakudim veheloch yesh he oros penimim, but there's only base oros makifim. So you lost 2 of the oros. So what are the 2 oros makifim? Now remember, we're talking about Naranchi. That's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. So he says what they are is the Makif Rishon. That would be the Makif which is closer to what's going to become the Kli, who connected Chaya Penimis, which corresponds, that light, the Makif first one, corresponds to an aspect in Penimis, which is the Chaya Penimis. Again, inside the Penimius, you have five lights. Inside, in regards to the Makif, you have 2. So one of them shines into the inside, which is just discussing how they shine through the walls, to the half of the wall. And it has this one, which is called Chaya. This one is called the first Makif, shines into the Chaya in the inside. Makif Sheni, the second, because there's only 2 of them here, Shehu Keneged Yechida Penimi, so corresponds to the very highest level of light that's on the inside. It corresponds to that. V'atam bezecha mevorah harav l'cholon in besof perik gimel. We're going to see this explained more. V'hinei kan kasher yatzacha ba'oros hakudim min hapeh. Now, the lights from the kudim are coming out of the mouth. Ta'ak. Lo yatzu shleimin b'kol b'chinosehem, but they don't come out complete. And the reason why they don't come out complete is the kavana of the matzil himself, that they're causing them, since they're incomplete, they have to go back to their birthplace, the place they came from, which is the peh, the ak. So now they're coming out of the mouth of ak. Just remember these floating particles that are coming out of the mouth of ak. But the way that they're going to come out, and we haven't described them coming out yet, we're just talking about it. So he says that the way they're going to come out is they're not going to be complete. They're not going to have all the lights that they need. What are the lights they need? Well, they need five oros penimim, which is the whole neranchi, and they need the Chai Yechido and the Makif. Without that, they're not complete. Now, we're going to look at each one of these different aspects in detail. What is the amount of what it's missing in order for it to become complete? So this is a whole story that we're going to get in. It's like a story of a train. V'gam sibas chisaron, also the reason for the chisaron shall call echad ve'echad. Why is it that they don't come out? They're going to be 10 lights, which are going to be, say, 10 spheros inside of one kli. Why don't they come out complete? Preparing zechem mevoyer harav kol seder yitzias order shall the kudem mepeh da'ak. Now we're saying all the order of how they come out of the peh da'ak. Preparing gimel, when you get to parak gimel, he said, Rav Seder Chazaras Ha'oretz. There, that parak is going to talk about the order of the Chazaras Ha'oretz Shalakudim, the Peh Da'ak, are going to go back into the Peh Da'ak, but not all as a bunch, but they're going to go in a certain order. Now let's come and let's start explaining what the Rav has to say. So we're on number Yud Daled, and a little blurb on top of it. Let me get a little drink here. Okay, so it says, and I quote, so Yisbar she'oris akudim lo yatsa shleime b'techidas etziluson v'tam b'zeh. Let's read the top. I messed that up a little bit, but let's try to keep going again. V'nevar yisias oros elach ha'nikroim akudim. Now we're going to talk about the reality, or what their existence is all about, these lights which are called akudim. Daki be'es sheyatzo, know that for the time that they came out, lo yatzo shleiman, commotion of our Bez Hashem, we will explain this. The Tamadavar, the reason for this, who ki kavonas ha'ma'atzil koyela asos ata, the kavona of the matzil. So we talked about before that there is a concept of keser, which is a concept of will, or will. It is the will of the ma'atzil, what he wants to do. Hoyla asos ata is to make now. Let me get this over here a little bit more. Haschalas havayas kalim. This is where we're going to see the beginning of the creation of kalim. Lahalvi shaor letzorach hamakablim sheyuchol lekablo. And what's the reason why this? What the kalim do is they clothe the light with tzorach hamakablim for the purpose of those who are going to receive it. So to understand that we're talking about the light of the Ein Sof, which is what you and I and all the whole world needs. But to be able to get that light, because it's really the light that will make you disappear, it's a light of nothing, of whatever that means. So l'tzorach ha'makablim, for us to be able to receive it, has to be clothed. Sheyuchol lekablos, that would be able to receive it. So now they come out, they're not complete. So there they go for a tikkun, to be rebuilt, and to become completed. They came, and through this, the kli is going to be made, as we're going to explain. So that was number, let's see, that was Yud Dalet. Okay, so here's, wait a minute. So we have to read Yud Dalet then.
Right.
So, we do? That was Yud Dalet? Yeah, okay, Yud Dalet. So he's like a B'oros Eila Akudim. Now when we talk about these lights called the Akudim, he says, Yotzim in the Peh, Lo Yatzah Ha'oros Shleimin. B'vnei Shekal Hu Seder His Chavos HaKedim Kamoshim B'vor V'holech. We're going to tell you how it is that kalim are made, but you're going to have to see the process. V'hiskil b'chavayas kalim ba'olam hakudim. So let's start talking about kalim. This is the first place you see a kli. Ma'achas shekal olam hu shorish l'olam b'shatachtav, and because of the fact that shorish also means a penimius, and it became first. So he said, because he says shekal olam, every olam, which means the hidden lights, shorish l'olam shatachtav is a root for what you're going to see surrounding it or below it. And that's the way it is. V'chein ba'olam hakudim kol yirak kli echad mechulak l'sara. But in the olam hakudim, get it out, akudim, there was only one kli, but it has 10 parts. V'olam in the kudim, but in olam in the kudim is gala asara kelim. Mamish, you're going to have actually 10 kelim. So why do you need a keli? Before Rav, shalom mitzad shleimus or tzarkli, the or itself doesn't need the kli. Ela mitzad makablim, but those who are going to receive the light of the Ein Sof, they need the kli. Behind the shahor machbez zakusa, because the light which is so nothing. So I'm trying to get good words for zakusa, means refined, but it doesn't really. I think the word nothing are so transparent. I use that word sometimes still. So fine, so thin, so transparent. The godel zivo, and its radiance is so powerful. Lo choyakol makabel oro rak achashin itztamsim. But only if you can contract it. How do you contract it? You make it small enough to get into a kli, the niknas b'soch a kli, and it goes in from there into the kli. So then he says, number tesvav. Let's find number tesvav here. There it is. So v'lechein, so we're on the, v'lechein in the light print. The tzorach chavayis hakelim, yatzach ha'oros dalkudim bilti shleimin. Shleimus ha'or, so he says, what is shleimus ha'or? Nikra sheyesh lo he oros pedimim v'beis makifim, that's shleimus ha'or, that if you were wondering about that. So the lights then have to go back to their creator, which is what he says in this case. What we're talking about is the main force is the pada'ak. In order to make it stronger in all of its different aspects. By doing this, so you would say, well, how does that complete them? Well, you get back closer to the original order of the light. But this is the whole process he's saying of they're going to have to go backwards somewhere along this path. He says that's contained in the third parak here. The Gavishi is bor l'cholon, as we're going to explain later on, ba'ofen havayis hakli na'asa daika al yedei shechazar ha'orot v'ma'atzel. So really, by making the reality, the kli is really made only as the lights come back into the ma'atzel and shuhu pada'ak, which is the pada'ak. Now, he didn't really explain it that well, but he's going to. So we have another 5 minutes, and let's see if we can read the top part. So now he's going to go into this piece. Yispor sha'akedim da'akudim nischavo al yedei she'oros chazrul la'alos b'pada'ak. Now that's just what he just said. So he's va'inin ki b'vadai hu shebechinas ha'kli hu hoya b'koach. Now the possibility of having a key was always potential. A kli was in potential all along. Even though you didn't actually have it within the middle of the light. In other words, in mitzvah the light. Because it, in terms of the light, this is what you're going to say now. And you maybe learn something over here about something else, but we'll see how it goes. He said, there is aspects of the light that are going to be more thick, more coarse. But they were ultimately, completely and totally mechuber. So therefore, the aspect of the kli, which is he's trying to say that the kli and the light of the kli, which is the more gross light, and the more refined light, which is the or itself, you can't distinguish them one from the next because that's their nature. Because as the light came out through the mouth, went out, everything is mixed up. If you were able to get your inner space rocket ship and you could get really close to the Pada'ak, now imagine the Pada'ak is like some kind of a supernatural or super whatever it is, human form. And you could bring your spaceship from where we are way down below, because our minds, the truth is that our minds connected up to the upper mind. So we can actually see that mind in action, and here's what the mind is doing, that all the lights that come out, now you're looking at the mouth, but the lights are coming out, boom, 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 10 of them. But they all look the same, or they all look, you can't distinguish anything. So it needs to go back in order to become completed. Because now we see that now the light is outside of the mouth. That which is the coarser aspect of the light, the thicker light. It gets away from the source of where the light is, which is inside of Ak, and it's because it starts becoming more thick. But so since it's gotten so thick, what happens is it's, let's say it's heavy, and it doesn't have that light little step that the ore has. But not, so he said what happens is it stays where it is, v'nipshak ha'or chazak mimeno, and what happens is it becomes separated, removed from it. The or chazak, that is really a part of those two oros. There's two oros, you can't tell the difference, but because of the distance as it's going away, the thick part starts to take on a reality of its own. And it goes up into its root, as we mentioned before. Then gets added onto that or avio. So let's try to understand this. As you got close, so you got real close to the pad ak, and you're able to see those lights. So now as the light gets, let's say the light is all gold, or so it's all one color. So then you see as you're going through this light that there's actually silver. As it gets further away from the pad ak, there's also a silver light inside of it, and the silver light is light, and the gold light is heavy. So what happens is that the silver light is going to want to join back with the rest of the lights we're in the pad ak, but as it's getting further away from the pad ak, the gold light is heavier, and as a result of that, it can't rise up. That's what he's saying. And so therefore, when the silver light leaves the gold light is going to be by itself, and it's going to be a kli. Now we're going to discuss that. I mean, we have 2 minutes more. I don't think there's much more I can do but go back over it. Unless you want to spend a few more minutes, and I'll finish out over
No, let's stop here. I have to go this over again. I'm just he's saying that it starts as one, but really it's bekayach to be a kli the whole time.
Well, remember that so he's saying that the light, there is light from the nose and there's light from the ears. So we saw that already. So one of it is going to be more thick than the other. So that's the light of the nose are going to be lesser light. This is all inside of the mouth. But in the mouth, everything gets joined together. So the ear light, nose light, it's all the same. It's now mouth light. And all of these lights gets joined together, and which I said I called them one silver, one gold. You could call it anything you want. But just said, for example, they're all together, but they look, when you bring your spaceship up close to the mouth, it looks like what's coming out is boom, 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 boom. Let's say 10 lights come out. But now as they're moving away, this is a concept over here, they're moving downwards. And as they're moving downwards, they're becoming thicker. But the silver light, the light that's in the inside, never gets thicker because it's just pure light. It doesn't have that quality, that grossness of the other. And so therefore, one becomes heavier than the other, and the lights, the ore itself, is going to want to rise back up to its source. Now, that's another idea. We'll get into it more. And you can review, absolutely.
Okay.
Any questions you have, you always, I'm there, so you could ask me.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All the best. Kol tov. Bye-bye.
I appreciate it. Kol tov. Bye-bye.